Ooh. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to another live stream. This is the Karen Bashford Empowerment Mentor Show, but we've renamed it partially the Sloth or Beaver Show, and that's because Karen has developed a toolkit for helping with either in therapeutic practice or just for yourself or for your family and friends, and it's a method of delving deeper into the reasons why we are who we are, and more importantly, helping you perhaps fix yourself from within. It's a very useful thing, and I have one and I've used it a number of times. But today, our topic is what some people consider slightly thorny, which is family relationships. And this is the time of year when it tends to bring these kind of relationships into high relief, I think many people would agree. Karen, family relationships.
Lovely, aren't they? Can be wonderful, and can be absolutely horrendous.
Look, as far as I know, we're one of the few animals on this earth that seems to continue the relationships once the children have been sired. I mean, the norm, if one goes by the sheer volume of it, is the parents help get the children to a certain point, that the children fledge the nest or leave or whatever, and from that point onwards, they are not necessarily, but humans persist in building further and getting more and more into each other's wants, needs, and desires, and Christmas, alcohol, etc., seems to be the point which tends to flare up any dissatisfaction with any of it. What's your thoughts on the matter?
Well, based on the fact that I've never enjoyed Christmas since I was a child, I would say that perhaps relationships at Christmas really test you, even if they're good relationships, because of the people around you, other people's behaviors, even your own physical well-being. If you're overly stressed for any reason, financial worries and things like that, that places an awful strain on a lot of even good relationships. So yeah, Christmas is not a good time for a lot of people.
One of our best friends, Joe, who I've actually used Sloth or Beaver with on a couple of occasions, has been making arrangements so that she doesn't have to spend Christmas with her parents, because this is the time when extra pressure pushes and pulls against, even as you say, good relationships, and can push it to breaking point almost.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, and then what I would like to do is, hopefully, you have a couple of questions from Sloth or Beaver that we could perhaps look at and listen to and respond to. But first of all, in your own mind, this let's acknowledge the fact this creates a lot of stress in people. Even before it happens, the stress, the build up is there. What can we do to combat, or at least help ourselves cope with better?
Well, my first question would be, do we really want to go? Because unfortunately, we often go out of obligation.
Yep.
So, yeah, do you really want to go? Are you going because you want to, or because it's an obligation? And if it's an obligation, how much does it mean for you to fulfill that obligation. I recognise that I would go to my mother's simply because I felt guilty of leaving her on her own on Christmas Day.
Right.
Not that I thought much of Christmas Day anyway, and I still don't. I still don't think much of Christmas Day. But I would drive 70 miles to be with her, to drive 70 miles back, just so she was not on her own on Christmas Day. And even before then, it was a case of I was having to go because it was expected for me to be present, despite the fact I would land up sitting there being totally ignored and not included in the conversation. So if you're feeling like that and you've experienced situations like that before, you need to seriously ask yourself, what is the benefit of me going? Why would I continually hurt myself by the behavior of others just because it's expected or I'm obliged to? You've got to put yourself first, and that sounds really, really selfish. But we do not realize quite how much damage we do to our bodies when we do something that causes us so much stress that it can have an impact for the whole year before we even calm down sufficiently to be able to face the next Christmas.
Yes. It's really weird. It's almost like the rest of the year boils down to this series of moments at the end of the year where it's usually the most inclement weather. It's often where we are, how should I put this, pleasantly or unpleasantly sozzled, and with a belly full of food. She is sitting there casting aspersions and poking bears with sticks, etc. This is the time where statistically most breakups happen. This is the time where most dissatisfaction happens. It's supposed to be a celebration, for goodness sake. So I guess it's important to know whether you want to be there or not. And I don't think it's wrong to be think about yourself first, because as you say, choosing wrongly or badly at this time of year could end up with the rest of the year with a dark shadow hanging over it because of that. So what do we do? Because with the best will in the world, we have to live with these people if they're in our families, and who knows, we probably love them too. But love tends to be a sum of the parts, doesn't it? So the rest of the time, you ignore those unpleasant things that happen. So how do we get through? Karen, can you give me a survivor's guide to the Christmas period?
Okay, well, personally for me, I would suggest if you are going to go, have a plan of action for yourself. What are you going to do if you are triggered? Because once you're triggered, you will continually be triggered. So if somebody says something to you that criticizes you, judges you, or anything like that, your first reaction is to snap.
It can well be. It can well be. Especially if you've been waiting the whole year, or you feel like you've been waiting. Or maybe this is the other one, Karen. You haven't seen them for an entire year because of the fury that was last Christmas.
So it's having that, okay, this is going to happen, and it's not a probability, it's a certainty.
Right.
It's a certainty.
Yeah.
In that case, if you know that's going to happen, are you willing to turn around and say, I'm not talking about this, or that's a bit unfair and I'm not responding to it, getting up and taking yourself out? Now, that could then trigger a further eruption, obviously, because you're walking out. But at the same time, you have to take into account arguments escalate. And do you really want to sit there with a full-blown argument on Christmas Day or Boxing Day or even the New Year?
When there's nowhere to go, there's nowhere really to go. Everywhere around you is all joyous and everybody happy. And what you want to do is just be somewhere quiet and contemplative.
Yeah. So if you can walk out and go for a walk and calm down, great.
Right.
But obviously you're still coming back to that environment, so it could happen again. The other thing is also to be capable of actually having some tools that will enable you to calm down. We instinctively, when we're stressed out, rub the sides of our hands. We do it instinctively. You don't even think about it. Sometimes you'll be sitting there just rubbing the sides of your hand. That will help you. We often land up rubbing the shoulders, our shoulders up here, this area. Again, that calms us down. Or you can physically take breaths in, hold your breath, and then breathe out. So you can take 6 breaths in, hold for 6, and breathe out for 6. That calms your nervous system. But you can do things like this under the table where nobody can see what's going on.
I do think your that piece of advice of having a plan of action, almost set in place in your mind. What is my escape clause? What can I do if things get too difficult? Is there an intermediate one where I can, for instance, leave the room and go? So, is there a final one, which is I'm sorry, I did want to try, but it's too difficult. So have a Merry Christmas and take care, and off you go. Are you prepared to take those sanctions? And I think you need to square that off with yourself before you put yourself in that position.
I would also recommend, if you can, don't drink.
I hate to say it, but
Drink
it's
the mouth.
It is like pouring petrol on embers, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Whatever. Okay. Sloth or Beaver Toolkit is something that Karen put together. It's been her brainchild. It's a board which charts the direction of your life, effectively representing from birth to death, but the steps in between. It's not. It's more representative than accurate. It's figurative. And they come with it a pack of cards. There are 6. Would you quickly go through what the 6 are, and then let's talk about Sloth or Beaver Toolkit in relation to today's topic?
Okay, right. Well, there's 6. There's money mindset, there's intimate relationship, there's health, business, and life.
Okay.
And the ones we're going to be talking about today are the relationship.
What a surprise. I could have predicted that. All right, cool. Do you have a couple of questions from them?
Yes, and interestingly, I pulled these before we started the live. So these are what come out, and that's how the cards work. Whatever is appropriate for you, you will pull the cards.
Okay.
So just be aware of that.
That's fine.
As children, we learn about boundaries through our parents. These might include things like bedtime routines or how we expect to speak to others. Discipline often comes into play when we've overstepped those boundaries or failed to meet adult expectations. Without clear boundaries, we can find ourselves accepting behaviour from others that doesn't feel right. What's one boundary you found difficult to maintain in past relationships?
It's a hard one. I'm a lot better at it now, but in previous relationships, not having had a proper family, my mother was pretty much always at work and my father was just disinterested. When I used to encounter other people's families, it would be always every time. It never got any easier. A cultural shock to see them doing things like play fighting and still remaining friends, or any of those kind of activities that would set me on edge, because or having robust discussions without becoming. My best friend, Chris, and his family could have not rows, but discussions that were close to the bone without them losing tempers. They were great. And I knew I could never do anything like that at the table at my own house. That it used to trigger the hell out of me, thinking, oh my goodness, if I was at home and I tried to talk about this, you know, I'd be in bed with no see. So I used to find it difficult to know where to stop the comparisons between my own situation and other people's around me. That used to be difficult. It's a lot easier now, but I mean, well, I'm 60 years in. It's taken a long time to get here. I've only considered myself to be able to cope in the last 4 or 5 years. Before then, it was always, wow, it's weird watching you do that, because I know I could never do that myself. Do you see what I mean? It was.
Yeah, I do understand. But
Well, let me throw it at you then, because you pulled the card.
Can I just say here, though, our boundaries are pushed against. And unless you're certain of what your boundary is, you will often give way. And every time you give way, you're letting your boundary become wider and wider. And Christmas is a time when our boundaries are well and truly pushed. So, knowing your boundaries even before you walk through the door on Christmas Day, or knowing your boundaries if you're in a situation where they're constantly being pushed, review them. Are you certain that you're holding true to them, or are you allowing yourself to have them pushed? The more they're pushed, the less control you have of what really goes on in your life.
Okay. But sometimes when you're already being so triggered, it's difficult to think clearly and say, hang on a moment.
That's why you need to set them before you arrive.
Yeah.
Or review them before you enter any kind of situation where they're likely to be triggered. The only person that controls boundaries is you.
Yes.
So if you're not clear on them, what's the point of having them? Because they're just going to be pushed constantly.
Yeah, it's actually making me feel anxious to thinking about the whole situation. All right, so, okay, right back at you, Karen Bashford.
Okay, so my boundaries used to be that I would, as I say, turn up at my mother's, spend the day there out of obligation. I loved her to pieces, but I didn't necessarily want to drive 70 miles on Christmas Day. All right, it was an easy journey because there wasn't that many people around, but I could have been doing things that I wanted to do rather than going and sitting, having a meal I didn't particularly want, or watching TV that I didn't. I've never liked it, watching TV. So it was a wasted day for me, basically. But there was an obligation. And don't get me wrong, I loved my mother dearly, but she wound me up terribly. And I hadn't learned to be able to say to her, well, Mum, can we do it another day instead? So I don't have to travel Christmas Day. And for me, Christmas is nothing special as far as I'm concerned. It never has been. But I was going because I felt obligated. So instead of setting my boundary for me, I was constantly allowing my boundaries to be passed because of obligation.
All right, let me talk a couple of things quick. First of all, if you find Sloth or Beaver interesting, and I think you'd be a fool if you didn't, please do look at that QR code I'll just put up there in the corner, because if you follow it, you will find your way to effectively the shop where you can talk, you can look and get the variety of it that you want. £75 includes 1 pack of cards. There are 6 decks available, as Karen explained earlier. And what I'm just going to quickly put up here is where I can find the damn thing. There we go. Find more about the slotholbeaver.com toolkit, slotholbeaver.com. It's great for people because you can really delve into why you do what you do, perhaps relook at things that you normally just don't see because you've seen them so often, and bring them to light. Also, it's great with families or friends. If you've got a family that wants to explore themselves and they're into relationships more, then this is an excellent way of doing exactly that. What I should also point out is that Karen Bashford is an empowerment mentor, typically working and focusing on ladies of a certain age, helping them, am I right, Karen, fixing themselves from within?
They don't fix themselves, they just get to know themselves and to understand themselves.
There you go, quite right.
Choices.
There you go. So, but by looking within, and what Karen is doing is acting as a catalyst to help you find yourself from within yourself, as it were. So if you want to start your wellness journey, please do visit karenbashford.com and have an excellent conversation with the lady concerned, and you may find yourself empowered just by that, or at least inspired. Shall we have one more card?
Certainly. This one's a good one.
Okay.
Congratulations. Reflecting on your life has deepened your sense of self as an independent force. Solitude in moderation is a gift to be appreciated and cultivated in order to appreciate what you have fully. Solitude grants us the opportunity to quieten the noise in our heads to hear our intuition. And is independence comforting, refreshing, motivational, or otherwise positively present in your life? How do you feel about freedom in solitude?
I'll go first. I used to hate solitude. Even if I wasn't with people, I'd prefer to be in a cafe where there was bustle and hustle and stuff going on, because it felt like I was part of something. And when I was by myself, I would think I was like a spare part. You know, I felt like when you completed your Airfix models, that little bit of plastic left over that you had no idea what to do with. That's what I used to feel like. Music has helped me combat that in the sense that it gives me real purpose. I love creating music. I like helping people smile, and sometimes my music does that. So that's really helped with that. But you know, I find these days that being alone helps me reflect. But I do sometimes find it difficult when it's just dead silence. I do need some sort of background, whether it's music or noise. How about yourself?
Well, I'm a person who absolutely adores being on my own. It doesn't worry me at all. I can be in silence, or I can have music around, or listening to a podcast or something like that. I find solitude to me is a form of relaxation, because I don't have to listen to other people if I choose not to. I don't have to be in the energy of other people if I choose not to. But at the same time, that doesn't mean to say that I don't enjoy the company of others. It's just that I'm the kind of person that does love being on my own. I've always been like that. Even as a child, I used to go into my bedroom and just sit and read without having the noise of everyone else around. We're all so different. So for some, solitude can be really positive. Some people need solitude just to recover from whatever's been going on. And yet others, as you say, not being part of something is so out of depth for them that they just can't cope with solitude. But we're all so different.
But I used to feel that way. But I've noticed over the last 3 or 4 years that I can be by myself. I find it difficult when there's complete silence because my head picks up any noise and starts focusing on that. Whereas when there's sort of like a quiet hubbub, if you know what I mean, not so as irritating, and I don't really want to hear the noises or the voices or anything. Just like having the sound, it just makes me feel.
You feel cocooned.
Certainly calmer. Yeah.
It gives you that sense of being wrapped up with something rather than just being totally exposed.
So once again, these have been questions taken from the Sloth or Beaver Toolkit. I've already mentioned her many times. This is Karen Batchford, an empowerment mentor. Karen, before we sign off for today, can you perhaps give us I wouldn't call it a Christmas message, a Yuletide message for one and all? So we can, when we rejoin again in the new year, we can look forward to talking about how we managed to get through the year and come out with a positive attitude.
Well, my Christmas message would be one that I'd share all the time: is you always have a choice.
Ooh, very powerful. Yes, you always have a choice. Yes, because fundamentally, you have body and mental autonomy. So you can choose what you're going to do in any situation. I mean, you may feel they have no choice, but you do. It's always
have a choice regardless.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Karen, as ever. It's been very useful for me this year, actually. Our relationship has changed, and I've learned to listen through the bits and pieces. Do bear in mind also that Karen does podcasts. The one that I edit is, and I'm going to put another QR code in the corner so you can have a look, is the Empowered Women Life Leaders podcast. Now, before any of you men out there groan away, oh, no about us, there's plenty in there that is reflective of you. Not only that, but Karen interviews men, women, and everything in between, and also alternates those interviews with musings of her own. There's plenty for everyone. You don't have to be one gender or sex or another to enjoy it and to find relevance to it. I find pretty much every week I find myself nodding along to things. It's worth taking a listen to. They are available pretty much anywhere that you might want to get a podcast from. Obviously Spotify and Deezer and all those places, but anyway, do have a listen. And I myself thank you very much for having taken the time out of your week every week to listen to us muse on various things. Do have a look at slothorbeaver.com. You're looking for a present that no one would have thought of as, well, yeah, I want one of those. This could be it, because this is groundbreaking and instrumental in finding better depth of understanding of each other. And I think that's a very noble quest, both for individuals and families. Thank you so much for taking the time out, Karen, and sharing it with me and with all of you out there. And please, can you please reach for the stars, always be curious, and try and look after each other and look after your mental health as well. Until next week or year? Week?
Next year.
We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye now.
Bye.